What is up, good people? Thanks again for tuning in to another strong episode of Henderson Performance Radio. And today you get to hear a conversation with Betsy Collie, who is a senior StrongFirst kettlebell instructor and owner-operator over at Rapid Results Fitness in Durham, North Carolina. I've had the pleasure of working with Betsy a handful of times over the years, and I can tell you she is one of the most passionate coaches I've ever come across. And that really shines through in spades in this interview. You can check out the show notes to this one at zachhenderson.com/Betsy, Betsy, and do listen all the way to the end because I did keep the recording going after our official interview and captured some pretty cool banter that might even be my very favorite part. So with that, I hope you enjoy this conversation with Senior SFG Betsy Collie. All right, we are on the line with Miss Betsy Collie. Betsy, how you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you, Zach.
Right on. So I've had the pleasure of being at your facility and training alongside you, both as a student and as an assistant instructor in some workshops. So tell us a little bit about kind of what you currently do and tell us a little bit about your gym and your business.
Okay, great. Currently, I'm a senior SFG with StrongFirst, and I own Rapid Results Fitness. It's one of the very few first predominantly kettlebell training facilities in North Carolina. We started about 8 years ago. It'll be 8 years in January. So I run that program. Countless number of people have walked through the doors, and most of them are still with me today, even through 8 years. I've had a handful of instructors come through my course who've gone on to become certified instructors and have either done it through just sheer empowerment, wanting to see if they could pass that certification course, or have actually become instructors for me or other gym facilities. So it's been really empowering to have a kind of a home base ownership of an organization and then to work for one a lot larger, like StrongFirst.
So for those who may not be familiar with maybe kettlebell training in general or specifically, what we might call hardstyle training, speak a little bit to the tenets of that training philosophy and maybe as it applies to not only kettlebells but to other training modalities.
I think that the most tenacious thing, I guess, about the training, the style of hardstyle training is that we are really breaking down movements and mechanics that we're applying to kettlebells. And not only just kettlebells, but now it's, StrongFirst represents the body weight and barbell components as well. And so the kettlebell training itself, though, what I find extremely important and valuable to, the average fitness enthusiast is that it really allows for teaching people body mechanics and really understanding how the body moves and how you should be utilizing certain body parts and, and avoiding misuse and overuse of other body parts. This hardstyle philosophy or methodology, if you will, that we train with is producing a lot better results and really utilizing the body well. And that's one of the biggest differences that I see in training people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess tell us a little bit about what your specific, ranking, for lack of a better term, or what yours is, and kind of a little bit about how you kind of came about. I would assume at one point in time you weren't really that into fitness, nobody's born swinging kettlebells.
Exactly.
So kind of how did you start out in health and fitness, and what's the nutshell story of how you've gotten to kind of the leadership position that you are in now?
Sure. I like to tell this story, so I'll try to keep it short. Um, but the truth of the matter is, I've been in fitness for a long time, and if I start giving you particular numbers, you're going to realize really how old I am. But the truth of it is I really got my first fitness gig when I was probably 18 years old. And the way that came about was I was a cheerleader, dance squad, choreographer and captain through, junior high and high school years. And what happened was I went off to a competition with my squad. And basically, a long story short, another cheerleading squad contacted me during the summer after our squad had won all these competitions and asked me if I would come train their squad in fitness to get better. I don't know, to look better. I guess as vanity would have it back in high school, to look better and move better as they performed. And so that was my first real, weird off the cuff gig where I traveled about 3 hours away from my hometown, spent 2 days with their squad and just worked on fitness. And I'd never really done anything like that before. Now, previous to that, my background was formal dance training. So I did a lot of ballet, jazz, a lot of formal training day in and day out. And so I think, to be honest, that kind of structured physical training led me to the fitness path that I'm on. That's in a nutshell what was my passion. And even though I didn't follow that suit as a formal dancer, it sort of gravitated into fitness. And all through college, that was my part-time job. I was a fitness trainer as I was going through college years. And that was back in the craze, and this is where I get dated. That was back in the craze of group fitness and high-impact aerobics. And that was the big thing coming in from California, and I was a part of that first wave of the trend. Don't do the math now. Don't get calculators out and start figuring out how old I was. But anyway, it was a great time because it really put me on the cutting edge, and I've never looked back and regretted. I've stayed in the fitness realm since then, either part-time while I had a major marketing career, and then also parentally having children. I stayed home for a while, kept the fitness part of me going, and then it really blossomed into full-time work after the kids got back into school. And I stumbled upon kettlebells, honestly, because a friend of mine who was training with a trainer here in Durham said, "You guys are so like-minded, you need to meet." And the person I'm speaking of is Jeff Newport. He's, former master trainer with StrongFirst and has really been an instrumental part of growing the kettlebell popularization, in the U.S. and is a wealth of knowledge. And so basically I've learned under him. I say under him because I basically hired him as a trainer to teach me kettlebells. And I took to it like fish to water. And from there, went on to get my certification. At that time, it was RKC. And literally the minute I got back from that certification weekend, I'll never forget, it was October 2007. By mid-November, if not, I'm shady on the math, it could have been October or November 1st. But by mid-November, I was holding beta classes of teaching kettlebells. And then Jeff and I opened Rapid Results Fitness on January 1st of 2008. So that, to me, spoke volumes of where my passion was. It became very clear to me that fitness was a very important part of my life. And the kettlebell work and the way I learned from Pavel Tsatsouline in that certification weekend, as well as the mentors that I learned from under him, really instilled what I already knew, but I didn't see it, the structure of it. What I'm alluding to is I realized there was something wrong in the fitness industry, the way we were trying to teach people and the way we were moving and the way we were, trying to get people to stay fit and healthy and active. We weren't educating them on how to move. We weren't actually stopping them in their tracks and saying, no, 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 don't do it this way, do it this way. And I learned very quickly in that kettlebell world that, wow, we're onto something big. We are changing bodies one body at a time by slowing people down in their tracks and saying, well, we got to teach you how to do this first, and that sounds so elementary and it sounds like common sense, but in the industry, we're not doing a good job of that. And that sounds sort of maybe geeky, but that's really what got me so interested, because I realized how integral the kettlebell movements are. In other words, it's not moving in isolation, and I gravitate to that just because of my dance background. But the average person does not. And when you explain it to them and they feel it and see it for the first time, to me, that's where that kettlebell training just was like no other. And it gave me a chance to really work with people in fixed form. I was always very frustrated in my own group classes where, the music's kicking and everybody's motivated and they're feeling all kinds of great things, but their form sucks. And I'm looking in the mirror going, oh gosh, I need to fix, Susie in the background before she hurts herself. But you couldn't stop, right? That's just the environment we were in. And so I became very disenchanted with the way our industry was producing results. And this really led me on a path of success. So leading up to my rank, I guess Pavel noticed that I was pretty motivated about this stuff, because as the rankings go, in RKC and in StrongFirst, Pavel, basically you have these levels. So there's a level 1 and level 2 instructor, and you can sign up and go through those courses or those certifications and pass. But beyond that, we have a team leader ranking, we have a senior ranking, and we have a master ranking. And that team leader ranking, you can go on strongfirst.com and see the number of team leaders that there are. But these rankings, team leader, senior, and master, are all approved or appointed by Pavel Tsatsouline. And a lot of folks in the instructor world would like to be, given that rank or that role. And there are very many, high standard, high quality instructors that are worthy of that role. What Pavel tells us, and he told us in a leadership meeting a few years ago, he said, basically the way these folks are appointed is that there are things about them that don't necessarily, can't be put on paper. That there are skill sets involved for sure, that there are high quality standards about that person, but sometimes it goes beyond what's written on a piece of paper. And so from that standpoint, I take that role very seriously. As a senior, I feel honored to be in that role, number one. Number two, it makes me live to a higher standard, not necessarily that they may set, they meaning StrongFirst or Pavel, but within myself, to be better, maybe from a skill set perspective, but also, deeper than that, beyond the kettlebell world, knowing what's going on in the industry around me, knowing more about the individuals that I come in contact with, right down to being more clear and concise with my to-do list with the people that expect, answers from me in the industry. So it's a role that we all take seriously, and it also holds us to a higher standard, I think, ethically. It makes me a more well-rounded individual, and I've learned a lot from being in that role.
Very cool. So when somebody walks into Rapid Results Fitness, mm-hmm. let's say maybe the average Joe or Jane who has a little bit of exercise under their belt, but maybe nothing quite so specific or intense, where do you start them? Do we have screens, beginner classes? What can people expect?
Generally, in our program, what we do is we require them to come to an intro class. That intro class is sort of a prerequisite to not only see where they are in their quest for learning, but also to give them an understanding of some of the cues that we use in our program, and also to just get a feel for what it's like to work with the kettlebell. Beyond that, though, a lot of times the way people come to me, which is why I think the program is working so well, is that there's a real genuine contact, usually by email or phone. And this is going to sound really old school, and I know that not every program can run this way. So to some degree, I consider myself lucky to be old school. What I mean by that is there is a real genuine face-to-face, if you will, interaction between me and the prospective client. In other words, they can go online and they can sign up for a jumpstart class without ever meeting me. And those people that know that that's what they want to do, that's totally fine. But there's a lot of hand-holding, if you will, that can go on behind the scenes. And so from that standpoint, I get to know them through email. They may give me a whole 3 paragraphs of where they are in their physical physical being, meaning injuries, chronic pain, goals that were never met, trials and tribulations of their work life. I get a lot of history, I guess, is what I'm leading up to, that helps me figure out, okay, do they need to be screened? FMS is what I'm referring to, a functional movement screen, or do we need to meet for a private session one-on-one before we filter them into, the group classes that we offer? Things like that. There's a lot of personal investment, if you will, in that person really before they even walk through the doors. And I think that's one of the things that has set us apart as a program.
Do you have a particular favorite exercise of your own that you like to do or emphasize in your own training?
Oh gosh, there's, we people that drink the Kool-Aid and love every kettlebell movement there is, as soon as we pick one thing, we'll say, oh yeah, but I really love the other thing. Oh yeah, and I love that. For me, what I love as an instructor is actually putting programming together that really brings aha moments to the client or to the student. So I guess my answer is twofold. Sometimes I love the simplistic programming. I know all the instructors out there listening to this will love this too. It's the programming that you write on the board that doesn't look like much. In other words, there's very few words, and the student comes in and looks at the board and goes, oh wow, this is going to be easy. Oh, this is going to be nothing, And by the end of the session, they're like, oh God, what did I sign up for? That looks so easy. So it's these aha moments that, for example, it could be 10 rounds of 10 rep swings that produce the most challenging episode for some of our students. And, I guess I like movements like that, but then I'll turn right around and say one of the more fun movements for me is a chain. I love to string kettlebell movements together. And I think that's another thing that sets our program apart. I don't write programming for entertainment value at all. However, it is really fun to work with a group of students who are able to do chains where you go from, a clean to a swing to a high pull to a snatch, and do that as a chain and do it, 5 times left, 5 times right, repeat 7 rounds. I mean, you start to really efficiently and effectively train your body when you can chain those movements together. So that's probably one of my most favorite movements to perform. And again, that probably gets back to my dance background. And I like to do it to music. So, that chain can be very, very powerful and very effective for training the body.
Totally. And what, if anything, in particular or specifically, are you training for?
You know, gosh, well, I'm waiting on the training program from Mike Perry. I was supposed to be a guinea pig for swings and pull-ups, but I haven't seen that yet. So I'm hoping for that one soon. But right now, actually, I'm going to be holding a TSC in April. So I think that my next training will involve deadlifts, pull-ups, and snatches. So that's going to put me a little bit out of my comfort zone because all three of those are high intensity in and of themselves and will demand, in my opinion, self-discipline about not overtraining. And what I'm alluding to, and I know the instructors out there will appreciate this and can relate, I love to do it all. And that being when I'm with my students in class, I'll jump in and out, of the training because I like what they're doing, and I will demonstrate and do when I get that energetic motivation to perform. And I'll have to rein that in as I train for the TSC. I can't just, do 3 classes a week or 3 classes a day with my students and then, live up to my SMART training for pull-ups, for example. And I know everyone out there who's trained pull-ups knows that's a very, high tension situation, and you have to be self-disciplined to rein that in and be able to meet your goals. So that's kind of where I'm headed right now over the next few months.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, again, Betsy, thank you very much for taking the time to chat today. I suppose just to kind of wrap up, what words of encouragement or advice might you give to any female considering starting a strength training regimen?
I definitely would say don't put it off. There are too many women that are training maybe in what they love to do instead of maybe getting out of their comfort zone and trying something different. And strength training for most women is something different. They've not spent a lot of time doing it. But beyond that, once you've told yourself, yes, I'm all in, I'm going to do this thing, you really need to find an instructor who definitely understands quality over quantity and knowing the right way to train. And that may come as a high cost. In anyone's particular area, there may be different cost factors involved with finding that instructor. But it's first and foremost that you learn under someone who is an expert in that field, whether it's kettlebell training, barbell training, or bodyweight exercise. In my opinion, the quality instructor is paramount and as it should be, because we instructors should be educating people how to do this. And my advice to that female going into the strength training world, there are a lot of people out there in that world, but you need to find someone that's really, really sharp and knows how to find the right cue for you, how to show modifications and variations when you need that. If they're just showing you the movement with no modification and not really teaching you where you are in your level, you need to run because that's not a good trainer. But strength training should not be something you should be scared of. You should embrace the learning moment of it and be open-minded and willing to start where you are and don't compare yourself with others in that situation. And allow that instructor to hold your hand, literally, and push you forward when you need to go forward and rein you in and take steps back when you need to take steps back to learn form. But don't wait. Do it. Do it now. 20-year-olds need to be doing it. 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds. It's ageless. And it's probably, if you weigh out the pros and cons of all the fitness choices we have, I'm not saying don't do the other things. A well-rounded physical body is awesome. But if you could really just list pros and cons of, let's say, strength training over just a cardio training, the pros for the whole body inside and out of strength training outweigh the pros of the cardio. And that's, I mean, Google that. You'll find the answers scientifically. It's one of the best things we can do for our body as a female.
So I guess just to wrap up, once again, just make mention of where people can find you both online and in the real world.
Okay, lots of places. You can definitely go to rapidresultsfitness.net. That's www.rapidresultsfitness.net. You can go to strongfirst.com and look up Betsy Collie, Senior SFG. You can find us on Facebook, either under Rapid Results Fitness or my name, Betsy Collie. And if you like email, you can find me at bcollie@nc.rr.com.
Right on. Appreciate it again, Betsy, and I hope I will be seeing you again real soon.
I hope so too. Definitely at the TSC in April, maybe, right?
I certainly hope so.
Good. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank
All
you.
right. Well, thank you again. And yeah, we'll chat soon.
All right. Thanks a lot.
So Betsy and I were actually chatting for a while, both before and after the official interview. So just as a little bonus here, I wanted to share a little bit of her thoughts on what the whole be stronger than you look concept means to her. So again, this was candid and off the cuff, but just want to share it with you guys. So with that, be well, stay strong.
And, you know, this whole thing about stronger than you look, I am so about that, as you know, because I don't want to get off on a tangent with the female side of things, but even in the female world, we're really harsh on that. I mean, I don't think we're giving body types their due. I don't mean make excuses for one body type or another. It's just, I think we need to appreciate the fact that we are all not from the same cookie cutter. And you know, strength isn't measured necessarily by what bell size you know, may be able to press. I guess what I'm saying out loud is stronger than you look means a lot of different things to me. It may not be a one rep max situation. It may be how strong are you collectively in your whole body, you know? And I guess that could turn into a real debate in the strength world. But maybe that's a whole separate podcast. But I just think there's a lot of misnomers about the way someone looks. I feel it even as a senior SFG. I know I don't look the part. So that stronger than you look really resonates to me. I just think that there's a lot of, there's a potential to be a lot of barriers, you know, in the strength world based on how you look. And then of course, being a female, there are layers of that too, you know? So it's interesting. It's interesting to share perspective and also listen to others, you know, to see what they're feeling.
Yeah.
So interesting. But I think you're onto something big, and I love to be a part of it. So I really do appreciate you inviting me to do it. It's very cool.